The morning sun burned hot on the rocky hills of 442B. Sergeant wiped sweat from his face as he led his squad through the narrow canyon. The red dirt stuck to their boots with every step. This was their third patrol this week, and hoped it would be as quiet as the others. "Tank, you see anything up there?" called Private from behind. The soldiers had called Tank since boot camp. He was built like one, broad shoulders, thick arms, and a head that seemed too small for his massive body. Raised his hand for silence. Through his binoculars he could see the valley ahead. It looked empty, just like the reports said it would be. They had pulled back from this area last month. Still, something felt wrong. "Keep your eyes open," whispered to his four-man squad. "Something doesn't smell right here." The war with the had been going on for 3 years now. Humans wanted to expand to new worlds. The bug-like aliens wanted the same planets. Both sides had good reasons. Both sides had lost too many people. Had seen enough of the to know they were not just simple insects. They were smart, organized, and deadly. Their crystalline shells could stop most human bullets. Their sonic weapons could turn a man's brain to soup from 50 meters away. As they moved down the slope, heard something that made his blood run cold. It was a high-pitched screaming sound. Not human. Not like any animal he knew. It came from the rocks ahead. "What the hell is that?" whispered Corporal Jackson, the squad's medic. Held up his fist. The squad stopped. The screaming came again, longer this time. It sounded like pain, pure, terrible pain. "Could be a trap," said Private Williams, checking his rifle. "Could be," agreed, "but we need to check it out." They moved forward carefully, using the rocks for cover. The screaming got louder. As they got closer, could hear voices. Voices speaking in their clicking language. Crawled to the edge of a rock and looked down into a small clearing. What he saw made his stomach turn. 5 soldiers stood around a 6th one who was chained to a metal post. The chained was different from the others. Her shell was not the dull gray-green of normal soldiers. It was deep blue with silver patterns that seemed to glow in the sunlight. One of the standing held a sonic weapon. He was using it on the chained one, but not to kill. The weapon was set low, just enough to crack her shell bit by bit. Blue fluid leaked from the cracks. Had seen blood before. This was definitely torture. "Sir," Jackson whispered, crawling up beside him, "that's not our problem. Orders are to avoid contact unless fired upon." Watched the torturer raise his weapon again. The chained lifted her head. Even through the alien features, could see the pain in her large compound eyes. She was young, he realized. Maybe not much older than his little sister back home. "Sir," Jackson said again. The sonic weapon fired. The chained scream cut through like a knife. More blue blood ran down her shell. One of the torturers said something in their clicking language. They all laughed. Had seen a lot of bad things in this war. He had killed in battle. He had lost friends to their weapons. But watching torture was different. This was not war. This was just cruelty. "Tank, we should go," whispered. "This is not our fight." Looked at his squad. 4 good soldiers who trusted him to make the right call. They were right, of course. Orders were orders. The smart thing was to report this and move on. The sonic weapon charged up again with a high whine. Made his choice. "Jackson, Williams, take the 2 on the left. You're with me on the right. We go in fast and hard." "Sir, are you crazy?" Jackson stared at him. "There's 5 of them." "There's 5 of them torturing a prisoner," said quietly. "That makes them the bad guys today." Before anyone could argue, was moving. He jumped over the rocks and charged down the slope, his rifle already firing. His squad hesitated for only a second before following him. The torturers were caught completely off guard. 2 fell to his rifle before they could even turn around. The others scattered for cover, clicking frantically in their language. A sonic blast whistled past his head, missing by inches. He dove behind a boulder as the weapon's energy cracked the stone behind him. His ears rang from the near miss. "Williams is hit," Jackson called from across the clearing. Sonic burned to the chest, popped up and fired at the who had shot Williams. The alien's shell cracked under the impact and he went down hard. 2 left. The remaining had taken cover behind some metal equipment. They were clicking rapidly to each other, probably calling for backup. Knew they had to finish this fast. "Keep them busy," he called. "I'm going around." Sprinted to his right, using the scattered rocks for cover. Sonic blasts followed him, turning stone to powder where he had been a second before. He could hear his rifle answering from the other side. When he reached the right angle, could see both remaining. They were focused on and had not seen him move. Took careful aim and fired twice. Both shots found their mark. The clearing went quiet except for the ringing in everyone's ears. Walked to the chained. Up close, he could see how bad her injuries were. The sonic torture had cracked her shell in dozens of places. Blue blood covered most of her body. Her breathing was shallow and fast. She looked up at him with those large alien eyes, had expected to see fear. Instead, he saw confusion. Why would a human soldier save her? "Jackson, get over here," called. "I need you to look at these wounds." "Sir, I don't know anything about treating," Jackson said as he ran over. "Their biology is completely different from ours." Was already working on the chains. They were standard military restraints, but he had learned how to open them during his training. The alien woman sagged when the chains fell away. "Different biology or not, she's bleeding to death," said. "We're going to try." As Jackson opened his medical kit, knelt beside the wounded. She was staring at him with those strange eyes, trying to understand why these human soldiers were helping her instead of finishing what the torturers had started. Jackson worked fast with his medical supplies. He cleaned the worst wounds on the shell with antiseptic that burned and smoked when it touched her blue blood. She made no sound, but her whole body went stiff with pain. "This is crazy, Tank," Jackson muttered as he worked. "I'm using human medicine on an alien. This could kill her faster than the wounds." "She's already dying," said, watching the alien's shallow breathing. "We have to try something." Pulled out his emergency biofoam. It was designed to seal human wounds and stop bleeding. He had no idea if it would work on crystalline shell, but it was all they had. He sprayed the white foam into the largest cracks. To his surprise, it stuck and began to harden. The alien woman's eyes went wide with shock. The biofoam was working. The bleeding slowed, then stopped completely. Sealed crack after crack until her shell looked like it was held together with white bandages. "I can't believe that worked," Jackson whispered. Private Williams groaned from where he lay nearby. The sonic weapon had burned a hole through his armor and into his chest. Was trying to stop the bleeding with field bandages. "How bad is Williams?" asked. "Bad enough," replied. "We need to get him to a medical station soon or we're going to lose him." Looked at their situation. One critically wounded soldier. One barely alive alien prisoner who might or might not be important. They were 40 kilometers from the nearest human outpost, with no transport and no radio contact. "Sir," Jackson said quietly, "we should leave her. Williams needs medical attention now." Looked down at the woman. Her eyes were still open, watching him. There was intelligence there, understanding. She knew they were talking about her. "We take them both," decided. "Sir, that's 40 kilometers through hostile territory," protested. "Williams can't walk that far. Neither can she." "Then we carry them," said simply. His squad stared at him like he had lost his mind. Maybe he had, but had made his choice when he decided to save her. He was not going to leave her here to die. They made a stretcher for Williams from rifle straps and a piece of metal from the equipment. The alien woman tried to stand but collapsed immediately. Her legs could not support her weight. Knelt beside her and pointed to his back. "Climb on." She stared at him in confusion. Had learned a few words of during the war, mostly curses and battle commands. He tried to remember the word for up and pointed again. After a moment, she understood. She wrapped her arms around his neck and let him lift her onto his back. She was lighter than he expected, but her shell was hard against his armor. He could feel her warm breath on his neck as she clung to him. They started walking, carried the alien woman while Jackson and took turns with Williams's stretcher. Every step was agony. His legs burned from the extra weight. His back ached from her sharp shell pressing against him. After 2 hours, they took their first rest, set the alien woman down gently and gave her some of his water. She sniffed it carefully before drinking. Human water, it seemed, was safe for. "Thank you," she said in heavily accented English. Nearly jumped. "You speak English?" "Little bit," she replied, struggling with the words. "Learn in school before war." "What's your name?" asked. She made a series of clicks and chirps that hurt his ears. Then she tried again in English. "You." "My friends call me Tank." She tilted her head, confused by the nickname. "Tank, like war machine." Smiled, something like that. Looked at with those strange compound eyes. "Why you save me? We are enemies." Thought about that question. His squad was probably wondering the same thing. Why risk everything for an alien soldier? "Because it was right," he said finally. Stared at him for a long moment. "Right, not strategic." "Right," confirmed. "You were in pain, I could help, so I did." This seemed to confuse her even more. Realized that mercy might be a foreign concept in military thinking. They started walking again, carried for another 3 hours before they heard the sound they had been dreading. Flyers in the distance, searching for them. "Take cover," called. They hid in a small cave as the alien aircraft buzzed overhead. The flyers had advanced sensors that could detect human heat signatures from kilometers away. Hoped the cave would hide them. Said something in her own language, very quietly. The flyers circled the area for another 10 minutes before flying away. "What did you say?" asked. "I tell them we went different way," she admitted. "My people look for me, but also look for you. They want revenge for dead soldiers." Realized she had just saved their lives by misdirecting her own people. "Why?" he asked. "Because you saved me," she said simply, "is fair." They walked through the night. Williams drifted in and out of consciousness. His breathing was getting worse. Pushed himself harder, his muscles screaming in protest. Every step was a battle against exhaustion and pain. Seemed to understand his struggle. During their rest stops, she would massage his shoulders with her remaining strength. Her touch was gentle, careful not to hurt him with her sharp fingers. "In my culture," she said during one rest, "when someone saves your life, you owe them life debt. Very serious thing." "I don't want anything from you," said. "I just wanted to help." "This is why you confuse me," she replied. "You act without wanting reward, very strange for soldier." "Maybe that's the difference between humans," and said. Was quiet for a long time. "Maybe," she agreed. As dawn broke over the rocky hills, could see smoke in the distance. The human outpost was only 5 kilometers away. His legs were shaking with exhaustion, but they were going to make it. "Almost there," he told his squad. Williams had stopped responding an hour ago, but he was still breathing. Jackson checked his pulse regularly and shook his head each time. They were running out of time. Forced himself to walk faster, tightened her grip around his neck and whispered encouragement in her own language. Even though he could not understand the words, he could hear the gratitude in her voice. The human sentries spotted them when they were still 2 kilometers out. A medical team raced out to meet them in a hover transport. Collapsed the moment the medics took Williams from them. As the doctors worked on Williams, sat on the ground beside. She was staring at the human medical team with fascination. "Your people work hard to save life," she observed. "Yes," said, "we do." A delegation arrived an hour later under a white flag. They had come to negotiate for their missing soldier. Learned only then who he had saved. Was not just any soldier. She was a queen. one of the royal family members who ruled the empire. The rebels who had captured her were enemies of her own people. Before she left with her escort, pressed something into his hand. It was a small piece of her shell, carved into an intricate pattern. "Life debt," she said simply. "I not forget Tank." Watched the transport disappear into the sky. He looked down at the shell fragment in his palm. It was warm to the touch and seemed to glow with its own light. Williams survived. The doctors said it was close, but he would recover completely. Never told anyone about his private conversation with the Queen. Some things, he figured, were better kept to himself. 15 years had passed like a bad dream. Stood at his security post on Harmony Point, watching the crowds of aliens and humans walk through the main corridor. His left arm was mechanical now, gleaming silver under the station lights. They had blown off his real arm in the Battle of New Jakarta, 2 years after he saved the Queen. The war had ended 7 years ago with an armistice. Not peace, just an agreement to stop shooting at each other. Both sides were too tired to keep fighting. Too many good people had died for rocks and metal in space. Work security now because it was simple. Check IDs, watch for trouble, keep the peace on a neutral station where former enemies tried to do business together. It paid enough for his small apartment and his drinking habit. That was all he needed these days. "Tank, you paying attention?" asked Sarah, his partner for the day shift. "The big ceremony starts in an hour." Grunted, "Yeah, I heard, the Queen's coming." Everyone on Harmony Point had been talking about it for weeks. The Supreme Queen of the Empire was coming for historic peace negotiations. Real peace this time, not just a ceasefire. The news network said it could change everything. Did not care much about politics anymore. He had seen too many promises broken, too many treaties signed and then ignored. Politicians made grand speeches while soldiers died for their mistakes. "You should show some respect," Sarah said. "This could mean the end of the Cold War. No more border skirmishes, no more fear of fighting starting again." "Sure," replied, not looking up from his scanner. "And maybe I'll grow my arm back too." Sarah gave him a concerned look. She was young, maybe 25, and still believed that people could change the world. That innocence. The war had burned all his optimism away years ago. The crowds were getting thicker as the ceremony time approached. Humans and moved carefully around each other, still not comfortable sharing space. 15 years of hatred did not disappear overnight. Heard the announcement over the station speakers. "Attention all residents and visitors. Her Imperial Majesty, Supreme Queen of the Empire, will arrive in Bay 7 in 10 minutes. Please clear the main corridors for the royal procession." Felt something stir in his memory. That name sounded familiar, but he could not place it. There had been so many battles, so many faces. The war years were mostly a blur of pain and noise. "Come on, Tank," Sarah said, tugging at his good arm. "Let's go watch history happen." Followed reluctantly. The main corridor was packed with spectators, humans, and stood on opposite sides, still maintaining their old divisions. News cameras floated overhead, recording everything. The procession came into view. 20 royal guards in ceremonial armor led the way. Their shells were polished to mirror brightness, reflecting the station lights like prisms. Behind them walked the dignitaries and advisors, all clicking and chirping in their complex language. Then came the Queen herself. Had seen royalty before in news footage, but never in person. This Queen was magnificent. Her shell was deep blue with intricate silver patterns that seemed to move in the light. She was larger than the soldiers around her head crowned with a crystalline formation that marked her supreme rank. She walked with perfect grace, nodding politely to the human spectators. Her large compound eyes took in everything around her with intelligent awareness. This was a ruler who had earned her position through more than just bloodline. The procession was about halfway through the corridor when something impossible happened. The Queen stopped walking. Her guards immediately went alert, hands moving to their weapons. The crowd murmured in confusion. This was not part of the planned ceremony. The Queen was looking directly into the crowd of spectators. Her head turned slowly as her eyes searched the faces around her. She was looking for something, or someone. Then her gaze found. Everything else seemed to fade away. The crowd noise dimmed to a whisper. The Queen's compound eyes locked onto his weathered face with shocking intensity. For a moment that lasted forever, they stared at each other across the corridor. Recognition dawned on both their faces at the same time. "No way," whispered. The Queen left her procession and began walking directly toward him. Her guards followed in confusion, unsure whether to stop her or protect her. The crowd parted before her like water. "Your Majesty," one of her advisors called in accented English, "the ceremony is scheduled to begin in." She silenced him with a gesture and continued walking toward. The entire corridor had gone completely quiet. News cameras swiveled to follow this unexpected development. Felt frozen in place. This could not be happening. The young he had saved 15 years ago had been a soldier, not royalty. But those eyes. He remembered those eyes looking up at him from a pool of blue blood. The Queen stopped 3 feet away from him. She was even more impressive up close. The patterns on her shell were works of art, each line perfectly formed, but could see something else now, a small scar near her shoulder where his biofoam had sealed a fatal wound. "Do you remember me, soldier?" she asked in perfect English. Her voice was deeper now, matured by years of command, but there was something underneath it that recognized. The same gratitude he had heard in a cave 15 years ago. He said softly. Her mandibles clicked in what might have been a smile. "You do remember." The crowd was going crazy. Camera drones buzzed around them like electronic insects. Could hear reporters shouting questions in a dozen different languages. "I remember," said. "You were dying, the rebels had." He stopped, suddenly aware of all the watching eyes around them. "Yes," the Queen said simply, "and you saved my life." Felt Sarah staring at him in shock. The other security guards were backing away, unsure how to handle this situation. Himself felt like he was trapped in some kind of strange dream. "Your Majesty," the advisor tried again, "we really must." The Queen raised her hand for silence. "Clear the corridor. I need to speak with this man privately." "Ma'am, I don't think that's wise," said the head of her guard detail. "Security protocols require." "Are you questioning my orders, Commander?" The Queen's voice carried absolute authority. The guard commander's shell darkened in what remembered was a sign of submission. "No, Your Majesty, clearing the corridor immediately." Within minutes, the entire main corridor was empty except for the Queen and her personal guards stationed at a respectful distance. The news cameras had been moved back, but knew they were still recording everything. "You look older," the Queen observed, studying his face. "So do you," replied, "and a lot more important." "Supreme Queen," she confirmed. "For 5 years now. My mother passed the crown to me when she became too ill to rule." Notice she did not mention what had happened to the father. In culture, he remembered, males rarely lived long after mating. "I learned about you after I returned home," the Queen continued. "Sergeant, called Tank by his friends, decorated veteran, lost his arm in the Battle of New Jakarta while saving 12 human civilians from a bombing attack. Was surprised she knew so much about him. You've been keeping track of me." "I have been keeping track of all my debts," she said meaningfully. "Some are more important than others." She gestured to the mechanical arm. "Does it cause you pain?" "Sometimes," admitted, "but I'm alive. That's more than a lot of people can say." "Because of your bravery," the Queen said. "You have continued to save lives even after the war." Shrugged. "I do security work now. It's not very heroic." "Heroism is not about the size of the action," the Queen replied. It is about the choice to help when help is needed. You taught me that. Stared at her. I taught you. More than you know, she said quietly. Your actions that day changed my understanding of what it means to be a leader, what it means to be good. Before could respond, one of her advisors approached cautiously. Your Majesty, we really cannot delay the ceremony any longer. The Queen nodded but did not look away from. Will you attend the ceremony, as my personal guest? I'm working, stammered. Not anymore, said a voice behind him. Turned to see the station commander approaching with a nervous expression. Mister, you are hereby granted immediate leave to attend the peace ceremony as the Queen's honored guest. Looked back at the Queen. There was something in her eyes that he could not quite identify. Hope, maybe, or determination. I would be honored, Your Majesty, he said finally. The Queen's mandibles clicked again in that smile-like expression. Thank you, we have much to discuss. The peace ceremony was everything the news broadcasts had promised. Hundreds of dignitaries from both human and governments filled the main assembly hall. Sat in the front row, feeling completely out of place in his simple security uniform among all the formal dress uniforms and ceremonial robes. Queen gave a speech about ending old hatred and building a new future. She spoke in both languages, switching smoothly between English and the clicking tongue. The crowd applauded politely, but could see the tension in their faces. Peace was a good idea in theory. Actually trusting your former enemies was much harder. After the ceremony, the Queen's guards escorted to a private meeting room deep in the diplomatic section of the station. The room was small but elegant, with a view of the stars through reinforced windows. Waited alone for several minutes, wondering what this was all about. When the Queen entered, she had dismissed all her guards except one. A large warrior with battle scars across his shell stood by the door, watching everything with suspicious eyes. Commander, wait outside, the Queen ordered. I need to speak privately with. The commander's mandibles clicked in protest. Your Majesty, security protocols require. Commander, the Queen said firmly, this man saved my life once. I think I can trust him not to harm me now. The warrior gave a long, evaluating look before stepping outside. Heard the door lock behind him. Forgive, the Queen said, settling into a chair designed for anatomy. He is very protective. The last 15 years have not been easy for anyone who supported peace. Took a human chair across from her. You said we had much to discuss. Yes, the Queen replied. But first, I want to thank you properly for what you did. That day in the canyon changed my life in ways you cannot imagine. You don't need to thank me, said. I just did what anyone would do. The Queen's compound eyes studied him carefully. No, what you did was extraordinary. Do you know why those rebels were torturing me? Shook his head. Because I had been speaking privately with other young nobles about the possibility of peace with humanity. I believed the war was destroying both our peoples for no good reason. The rebels saw this as treason. Began to understand, so they tried to make you change your mind. They tried to break me, the Queen corrected. To make me hate humans so much that I would never consider peace again. Instead, a human soldier risked his life to save me. Your actions proved that everything I believed about the possibility of peace was correct. She leaned forward in her chair. When I returned home, I began working toward this day. Every proposal for peace talks, every attempt to end the hostility. It all started because you showed mercy to an enemy. Felt overwhelmed. All those years of brutal fighting after he saved her, all those friends he had lost, had it really led to something worthwhile? But that's not why I asked you here, the Queen continued, her voice becoming serious. I need your help again. My help, Your Majesty, I'm just a security guard now. What could I possibly? The same rebels who captured me 15 years ago are still active, the Queen interrupted. They call themselves the Pure Flame. They see my peace efforts as betrayal of superiority. They have been planning something for months. Felt a chill run down his spine. What kind of something? Assassination, the Queen said bluntly. During the signing ceremony tomorrow, they plan to kill me and make it look like humans were responsible. The resulting outrage would restart the war immediately. Stared at her in shock. How do you know this? Intelligence sources, loyal who infiltrated their organization. But here is the worst part. The Queen paused, seeming to gather her courage. They are not working alone. What do you mean? Human conspirators, the Queen explained. Military contractors who profit from warfare. Politicians who built their careers on anti-hatred. They also want the peace process to fail. Felt his blood turn cold. Humans working with rebels to restart a war that had already killed millions. That's insane. Is it? The Queen asked sadly. War makes some people very rich. Peace threatens their profits. They would rather see both our peoples die than lose their power. Leaned back in his chair, trying to process this information. Why are you telling me this? Why not your own security forces? Because I cannot be certain who to trust, the Queen admitted. The conspiracy involves high-ranking officials on both sides. Anyone I approach could be working with the assassins. But you trust me. You once risked everything to save my life when you had no reason to help me, the Queen said simply. You are the only person in the galaxy I know with absolute certainty is not involved in this plot. Thought about that. She was right, of course. He had no political connections, no business interests tied to the war. He was just a broken-down veteran trying to get by. What do you want me to do? He asked. The Queen reached into her robes and pulled out a small device. This contains all the intelligence we have gathered about the plot. Names, locations, planned methods. Tomorrow morning, you will use your security clearance to access areas where my normal guards cannot go. You will identify the conspirators and stop them. Took the device, feeling its weight in his palm. Your Majesty, I'm honored that you trust me, but I'm not a soldier anymore. I'm 43 years old with one real arm and too many old injuries. If you want to stop trained assassins, you need someone younger and stronger. I need someone I can trust completely, the Queen replied. Age and injury do not change the quality of a person's character. You proved that when you carried me 40 kilometers to safety. Was quiet for a long moment, staring at the device. If I do this and we succeed, what then? The people behind this conspiracy won't just give up. If we expose them publicly during the signing ceremony, their own supporters will turn against them, the Queen explained. No one wants to be associated with traitors and war profiteers. And if we fail? The Queen's mandibles clicked grimly. Then millions of people will die in a new war, including everyone on this station when the first shots are fired. Looked up at her, no pressure, right? I am not ordering you to do this, the Queen said gently. You have given enough for both our peoples already. You have earned the right to walk away. Thought about all the friends he had lost in the war. All the young soldiers on both sides who had died fighting for politicians and profiteers. He thought about Williams, who had survived that day in the canyon and now had 3 children back on Earth. What do you need me to do? He asked again. The Queen's expression brightened with hope. First, we need to identify which of my guards are compromised. The assassination will require inside help to succeed. How do we do that? By giving different information to different people and seeing who acts on it, the Queen explained. But we must be very careful. If we make the wrong person suspicious, they could move the timeline forward. Studied the intelligence device in his hand. 15 years ago, I was just trying to do the right thing. I never expected it to lead to this. The right thing often leads to bigger responsibilities, the Queen observed. But that does not make it wrong to do. Smiled at that. You sound like a soldier I once knew. She was much younger then and bleeding all over my biofoam. The Queen clicked her mandibles in amusement. That soldier learned everything she knows about leadership from a human sergeant who refused to leave her behind. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry. The Queen activated a communicator on her wrist. Yes. Commander's voice came through clearly. Your Majesty, you are needed for the final security briefing. The human delegation is waiting. The Queen looked at. That could be them. The conspirators, pretending to coordinate security while actually planning my death. Stood up and slipped the device into his pocket. Then, we better go find out who the real enemies are. Together, the Queen asked. Together, confirmed, just like last time. The Queen rose from her chair with regal grace. Thank you, for 15 years ago and for now. Don't thank me yet, replied. Let's see if this old soldier can still do his job. The signing ceremony was scheduled for noon in the station's main garden dome. Spent the morning studying the intelligence files and watching people. Every face could hide an assassin. Every friendly smile could be a lie. He had identified 3 possible threats in the Queen's own security detail. Commander was above suspicion. His loyalty was absolute. But Lieutenant had made subtle inquiries about changing the Queen's route. Captain had requested additional weapons for security. Both were suspicious behaviors. On the human side, recognized 2 military contractors he had seen talking quietly with officials. Former Colonel Harrison was supposed to be retired, but he still had contacts in intelligence. Admiral commanded the human security detail, but her aide had been asking too many questions about the Queen's schedule. The garden dome was beautiful in the artificial daylight. Trees and flowers from a dozen worlds created a peaceful setting for the historic ceremony. It was the perfect place to sign a peace treaty. It was also the perfect place for an ambush. Positioned himself near the main entrance, watching the crowds arrive. Diplomats, reporters, and honored guests filled the garden paths. Everyone had been carefully screened, but knew that would not stop determined assassins. Queen arrived precisely on time, resplendent in formal robes of deep blue and silver. She nodded to as she passed, a barely visible acknowledgement of their secret alliance. Her security guards formed a protective circle around her as she moved toward the signing platform. The human delegation arrived moments later. President and her advisors took their positions across from the Queen. Cameras floated everywhere, broadcasting the ceremony to billions of viewers across human and space. Activated his earpiece and spoke quietly. Sarah, you in position at the east entrance. Copy that, tank, his partner's voice crackled back. Nothing suspicious so far. Had brought Sarah into the operation without telling her the full story. He had simply said that there might be protesters who could cause trouble. She was sharp and reliable, exactly what he needed. The ceremony began with speeches from both leaders. President spoke about the cost of war and the hope for peace. Queen responded with elegant words about friendship between species. Barely listened. He was watching the crowd, looking for the wrong movement or expression. There, Lieutenant was moving toward a maintenance panel near the platform. That panel controlled the dome's atmospheric systems. Spoke into his earpiece. Possible threat near Sector 7, moving to investigate. Worked his way through the crowd, trying not to look suspicious. Had opened the maintenance panel and was connecting some kind of device. Could not see what it was, but it definitely did not belong there. Freeze, called, drawing his weapon. Spun around, his hand moving to his sidearm. Fired first. The warrior went down hard, his sonic weapon clattering across the floor. But the damage was done. Whatever device he had been installing was now active and beeping. Alarms began blaring throughout the dome. The crowd panicked, pushing toward the exits. Security guards from both sides rushed toward the platform where their leaders stood exposed. Gas attack, someone screamed, poison gas. Could smell it now, a sweet, chemical odor pumping through the ventilation system. It was designed to kill humans quickly and leave unharmed. The perfect weapon to make humans look like the victims and look like the aggressors. But that was just the first part of the plan. Saw Captain raise his weapon toward the Queen. She was standing calmly despite the chaos, trusting her guards to protect her. She did not see the betrayal coming from within her own ranks. Ran toward the platform, pushing through the panicking crowd. He would not reach her in time, was taking aim. "Your Majesty," shouted, "down." The Queen turned at his voice and saw the weapon pointed at her. Her training kicked in and she dropped to the ground just as fired. The sonic blast passed over her head and shattered a tree behind the platform. Tackled before he could fire again, they crashed to the ground in a tangle of limbs and armor. That was stronger but had experience fighting their kind. He used his mechanical arm to block claws and struck back with his human fist. The fight was brief but vicious. Had age and injury working against him, but he had something his opponent did not: absolute determination. This Queen had become his friend. These peace talks represented hope for the future. He would not let assassins destroy either. Managed to pin down and secure his weapons, but the gas was getting thicker. Around the dome, human delegates were collapsing. President had fallen unconscious on the platform. Her security detail was trying to get her to safety, but they were affected by the poison too. Sarah called into his earpiece, "Get everyone to the emergency shelters. The air system is compromised." "Already working on it." Sarah's voice was strained. "Tank, whatever's happening, it's not just protesters." Looked around the chaos and realized the assassination plot was still in motion. Taking out the Queen's traitorous guards was only part of it. The real target was not just her, but the entire peace process. Admiral's aide was not helping evacuate people. He was standing near the platform, watching President collapse with satisfaction. Understood with horrible clarity, the humans needed to be poisoned so they would be blamed for attempting to gas the Queen. It would look like a failed human assassination attempt that backfired. Drew his weapon and aimed at the aide. "Stop right there." The man spun around with a pistol in his hand. Dove aside as bullets sparked off the platform. The aide was a professional, trained, and dangerous. But he made one mistake. He assumed was just another aging security guard. Rolled behind cover and flanked to the right. When the aide moved to follow him, came up from the other side and put 2 shots center mass. The conspiracy's human leader went down permanently. But the gas was winning. Could feel it burning his lungs with each breath. His vision was starting to blur. Around the dome, more humans were falling unconscious. Even some of them were having trouble breathing. Queen appeared beside him, her face mask protecting her from the worst of the poison. "The emergency ventilation controls are in the command center. Can you reach them?" Looked toward the command center at the top of the dome. It was 50 meters of stairs and walkways through increasingly thick gas. His old wounds were aching. His mechanical arm was sparking from damage taken in the fight. "I can try," he said. "No," the Queen said firmly. "We go together like before." Looked at her in surprise. "Your Majesty, you should evacuate. Let me handle this." 15 years ago, you taught me that leaders do not abandon people in need," the Queen replied. "Today I lead." They climbed the stairs together, step by painful step. The gas was so thick now that could barely see the Queen beside him. His lungs felt like they were on fire. Every breath was agony. Halfway up, stumbled and fell. The Queen caught him with her strong arms and helped him stand. "Come on, soldier," she said, using his old rank. "We are almost there." They reached the command center together. Hands were shaking as he worked the emergency controls. The ventilation system began cycling, pumping fresh air into the dome and filtering out the poison gas. Below them, the evacuation was proceeding more smoothly. Security teams from both sides were working together to get people to safety. The conspiracy had failed, but could feel his strength fatting. The poison had been in his system too long. His old heart could not handle much more damage. "Your Majesty," he said quietly, "I don't think I'm going to make it down those stairs." The Queen knelt beside him as he slumped against the control panel. Her large eyes showed deep concern. "No, the medics are coming. You just need to hold on." Managed a weak smile. "I've had 15 good years since you saved my life back on that transport. That's more than a lot of soldiers get." "You saved my life," the Queen corrected, "twice now." "And you saved mine too," replied. "You gave me purpose again, showed me that what I did in the war actually mattered." Emergency medical teams were climbing the stairs toward them. Could hear them calling out in multiple languages, but he could also feel his vision growing dark around the edges. "Your Majesty," he whispered, "promise me something." "Anything," the Queen said, holding his hand. "Don't let them use this attack to restart the war. Don't let the conspirators win, even in death." The Queen's mandibles clicked with determination. "I promise, the peace will hold." Squeezed her hand with his remaining strength. Then it was all worth it. The medical team reached them and immediately began working on oxygen masks, stimulant injections, everything they could think of. But the damage was too extensive. The poison had affected too many of his vital systems. As consciousness faded, could hear the Queen speaking to the crowds below through the dome's communication system. She was explaining what had happened, how extremists from both sides had tried to destroy the peace process, how the conspirators had been stopped by brave people working together. The last thing heard was her voice, strong and clear, announcing that the peace treaty would be signed as scheduled. The assassination attempt had failed. The future would be built on cooperation, not conquest. Smiled as the darkness took him. He had done his job one last time. 3 days later, the peace accords were signed in a simple ceremony. Both governments agreed to name the treaty the Accords, in honor of the human soldier who died protecting the peace process. Queen spoke at his funeral, attended by representatives from across human and space. She told them about a sergeant who once saved an enemy's life because it was the right thing to do, about how that single act of mercy had changed the course of history. A memorial was erected in the station's main plaza. The inscription, written in both human and script, read simply, "In memory of those who choose to do what is right." The Queen visited the memorial every year on the anniversary of the peace accords. She would place flowers there and speak quietly to the bronze statue of a human soldier helping a wounded. "Do you remember me, soldier?" she would always ask. "I remember you, and I promise the peace will hold." It did.